another edition of Inside Great Lakes Sailing. We're out back at Regatta again. We're headed out to watch the first race, the Big Red Regatta here from the GL52s. We're going to get a chance to interview some of the folks this weekend. It'll be an interesting conversation. We're going to check out the Big Red race here, then we're going to go back to Crescent and check out the one design. Dale Court and his wife were nice enough to take us out on a Shamrock 26 out to Lake Michigan. It's growing a little bit. A couple of the boats have gotten out earlier, and we'll let you know what's going on and just have some fun with it. So we'll be back. Over my shoulder, we've had a start with the 7 Great Lake 52s here on the first race of Friday in the Big Red Regatta. We're going to give you a little bit of the action. Some of the guys broke early off of the starting line, but watching these 7 boats, there's 12 in the fleet, but watching these 7 boats race is pretty terrific. I know Gary Jobson talked a couple years ago about these being the boat for America's Cup. I tell you what, I'd be one to vote for it. Talk about power and speed. We're working at about 15 or 16 knots today. I'm going to turn this camera around and give you some idea that these boats are doing 14 or 15. This boat right now, the Prospector, are moving at about 14 and a half knots on a 17-knot wind. These boats are so powerful. We're on a power boat trying to keep up with these guys. It's kind of fun to watch. The knot. Put our boats away. We're going to show you a little bit about what goes on after the race, which I think is kind of interesting. This is the long dock that all of the big boys out. They're here at the Eldon Shipyard, which is next door to Regatta. It's a pretty interesting discussion. We're going to have a conversation as we go through the season for the 52s and just take a look at some of the. You think you have stuff on your boat when you see some of the trailers that these guys have. It's just the most amazing thing. Talking with John Hune from Katana, and John, talk a little bit about today. This is the first race. You guys got in 3 races today?
We did get in 3 today.
And it was good, fun, and all the rest of it. But talk a little bit about the season and what you're looking forward to this summer.
Yeah, first regatta of the season, so we're looking forward to another good summer. Forecast wasn't for such a great day, but we ended up in a pretty good condition out there. So we had low to mid-teens in the first race, waned a little bit through the day, but still got 3 races in.
Do you have a favorite race out of the series?
Oh, I like the inshore series, and no offense to the folks here in Holland, but everyone loves Harbor Springs.
Okay, that's fair enough. It's going to be a fun summer. Obviously, we're looking for good weather and doing the rest of it. But the fleet has gotten better. There's 12 boats. It's gotten more competitive, and there's some names now. There's some guys coming from other parts. This is certainly the best big boat fleet in North America. Would you not agree?
Absolutely. We had 7 out there today. I think there's 12 in the series, so we're looking forward to continuing to build it, and it's happening.
Well, Obviously, talking with Bob Hughes, this is the first day of the obviously start of the GL52 series with summer. Any thoughts?
Oh, well, we wait a long time for this. It's been 9 months since we got off the boats here before. Some of them raced down south this winter, but we didn't. So we were chomping at the bit, and it did disappoint if you were out there watching the race and 7 great teams going at it and massive lead changes and crosses and tight maneuvers at the mark. It was awesome racing.
Bigger fleet, got a number of superstars in this group, and it seems to get better and better. And it's not hyperbole, it's just the facts. I mean, this is an unbelievably professional fleet.
Yeah, it's fun to be able to race against the very best in any sport. We can't go play tennis against John McEnroe back in the day, or ski against Maria Sharapova, but we can play sailboat racing against the best America's Cup and Olympic sailors out there, and it's fun to be able to do that and compete against people at that level. So
picked up one of the best sailors in the world in Paul Goodison, who's on your boat, and any thoughts on Paul?
Oh, we sailed with him the year before. He obviously was a little busy last year with the Cup, so
yeah.
Raced many years against Paul, and then was able to get him on board a couple years ago and loved sailing with Paul. Paul loves to race boats. He loves to ride bikes like we, so we have a lot of things that we like to talk about. But he's a great person to have on board, just has that presence and that inability to judge the wind and run a team well, and just a great all-around sailor.
Talk about the sustaining the season and what you think is coming up. You got some long distance races and you're kind of moving towards that. So
yeah, that's what's so unique about this series and makes it really the best big boat fleet in North America. And we got this 4 buoy regattas of 3 days of racing, 8 to 9 races, and then you got 3 awesome offshore races: the Queen's Cup, that sprint across the lake in a couple weeks, and then of course the 2 MAC races. So it really measures a team. You've got to be good in everything, and to win the overall season championship, if you can do that you've demonstrated you're the best big boat team in all types of sailing. So
do you have a favorite race out of the entire series?
The whole race that got me into it, that enchanted me, was the Chicago MAC. But I love racing around the buoys. But the Chicago MAC, it goes by our cottage, and that's what originally drew me in to go want to get a boat and do all this dumb stuff. But I would have to say it's that. But there's a lot of great ones. So great one's always the one that you did today. How's that?
Appreciate your time.
Yes.
You sail in all kinds of fleets, obviously America's Cups and all the foils. What's your thoughts on the 52s?
Oh, this is a great circuit. I said to the guys on the way, and that was one of the funnest days sailing I've had in quite a while. The racing's super close, the boats are all very competitive, and the racing's just fun.
Do you see this? Jobson said a couple of years ago that he thought this might be a boat for America's Cup. You've raced America's Cup. Is that something you could even consider?
I have a little different view. I think the America's Cup is all about pushing the boundaries, pushing the limits, and I love the boats that fly and the technology behind them. They're incredible boats, but there's definitely space for these sort of boats. Like the racing here is incredible, and I really enjoy both aspects of the sport.
Yeah, we're at the Holland Farmers Market. And if you head this side of town, if you're from the west side of the state, you know how cool this is. We're going to show you a bunch of pictures. But the morning of the races here over in the GL52s, we decided to take a little bit of a trip and kind of enjoy it. This is the coolest farmers market I've ever been in. We've been past it coming over to Hope College with various things. And again, most of you guys on the east side of the state, this has got everything you can imagine, from fish from the UP to flowers. And if you look at the video that we're showing you, you can obviously see that this is a great sidestep. If you happen to be boat motoring on this side or just traveling through on a Saturday or Sunday, God, stop, because this is one of the coolest things you'll ever see.
Yeah, I know, but just look at that. It's so sad.
At the U.S. Center for Safe Sport, ending abuse is not just our job, it's our promise.
Welcome back. We're talking with Wally Cross from Quantum Sales. Wally, last week we talked about finding the right sailmaker and kind of what goes into that and the process of maybe learning online with all the information. So now I've done my homework. I'm about to call Wally Cross to buy a new sail, but I really have no idea what I should be carrying. What kind of sail should I be carrying on my boat? I'm a racer, I'm a cruiser. That question certainly has to go through a lot of conversations you have with people that are tweeners, maybe somebody who wants to race, maybe a partial racer. So maybe let's talk a little bit about, if I've got a boat, how do I determine what sails are right for my boat?
No, that's a great question, because again, you can buy tin sails and not only need two. So today, because of the materials and the design, the sails have more range, wind range than ever. So I like to break it up into three groups: the so-called primary sails, the secondary sails, and then the luxury sails. And if you're a racer, let's say a club racer, and you want to perform well in either point-to-point racing or around the buoys, first and foremost, you need a mainsail, and you need whatever that largest jib or genoa is, all-purpose. And most of the materials today are light enough. You can get a really wide-range sail out of the materials that we're using today. So main, genoa, and some form of off-the-wind sail. If it's a spinnaker pole boat, you're going to buy a spinnaker. If it's an asymmetric, you're going to buy the big asymmetric. So a running sail, an upwind sail, and then of course the mainsail. Those are the three primary sails. The secondary sails are the sails that when you have to reduce the size of the jib or flatten the jib, that would be a number 3. A reaching spinnaker or asymmetric when the wind's more abeam. And then the luxury sails are sails like staysails, code zeros, specialty sails that can even add a little bit more performance to your boat when sailing point to point.
Sails equivalent to horsepower for moving the boat when it's not running, obviously. How do you know what the right sizes are? And I guess that's part of your job as a professional sailmaker, is that right?
Well, that's one of our jobs, and fortunately, we get a lot of help from the boat designers, because the boat designer comes up with what they call VPPs, a velocity prediction program, when they design a boat. And that whole program will determine how tall the mast is and how big the sail should be to perform at those numbers that the designer is hoping for. So let's say on a J111, the jib's 105%. That's the biggest you can put on that boat. But on a Beneteau 36.7, it's 155% is as big as you can put on that boat. So we deal with the maximum size sail, figure out how we can get the most range out of that sail through design and material, and then sort out what is the next step down when the wind picks up beyond that sail.
There's different kinds of materials which also are going to change pricing, because obviously a racer needs a different sail than a casual person. We've heard that racers at the highest level, sometimes it's hours in terms of sails used now. I'm a casual, I own a 30 day. What kind of sails am I looking for? And then maybe compare that to a J30 or a boat that would be of equivalent racing perspective.
Oh, again, great question, because a lot of times the lower stretch or the higher, high modulus yarn that we put in a sail gives the sail an edge in terms of performance, meaning less energy lost in a sail moving means more energy related to the boat, makes the boat faster. So you can argue that carbon would be the best yarn to use for a variety of boats in terms of performance, but it's not necessarily the best in terms of durability and longevity. And your question is how do I get the best value? Because that's what I'm always looking at when talking to a customer. Where's the value come from? So it comes from a combination of some low stretch fiber in the sail combined with a woven dacron. And that blend will give you performance and durability. A boat like yours, we've got materials out there called Palma, which will be fantastic for terms of durability and performance. A little bit on the heavy side, but really rugged, lasts many, many years. Whereas a boat like a TP52 is going to get all carbon sail that maybe might last 15, 20, 30 races.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back. You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Welcome back. We're getting a chance to talk to, from Toledo, Brad D'Arcangelo, who was the Mills race overall winner a couple of weeks ago. And we're catching up with a bunch of races, including this one. And interesting transfer from 2024, where there's too much wind, to a relatively slow race this year in 2025. But your GL109 made it across the line, and I think this is your fourth victory in that race overall. Am I mistaken?
It is the first one with the 109. We were lucky enough to win 3 previous races with the Santana 35.
You are a Commodore, Vice Commodore at North Cape Yacht Club. Am I correct?
Yes, correct.
Talk a little bit about the race. When it's slow like that, does it change the complexion, or is it just you sort of sail to the conditions?
You know, it was only slow for maybe 2 hours. So the end of dusk Friday evening, it got slow and into before, but by the time the sun went down Friday night, the wind had filled in, and we were in 10 knots of breeze the rest of the event.
Okay, I did not know that. I guess the obvious question to ask you is: it great seamanship and sailing prowess that won the race, or was it just one of those handicaps because you got a J109?
Well, I give the credit to the crew. My crew did a great job. We kind of strived this year to not throttle down, to not throttle back. We were at least one time last year we did that in a race, and it was the conditions. Actually, is the 2020 the 100th running of the Mills when we had serious wind. We had solid wind, and we throttled it back at one point, and it cost us. And this year, the crew and I decided that, you know what, when we had an opportunity, we were going to press forward, and we did in this race. There were opportunities to kind of sail with the common, Genoa versus a code zero. And we pushed the envelope a little bit, threw the code zero up, and I think we were able to maintain our position with the faster boats that were in our class.
Brad, the Mills race runs obviously at night. This coming weekend is the Queen's Cup. Those are 2 great tune-ups for what essentially becomes the Chicago to Mac and the Port Huron to Mac, and certainly this year, not as many folks participate in the Transperior, but those are really good races to get sort of the summer off. Is that a fair estimate?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, Greg. I think the Mills race having the overnight, I look at it as a somewhat of a sprint race, though. I mean, it's 70 miles, so there's no shifts. We for the most part we stay up and we work the boat all night long. This year we finished we started at 5 p.m. on Friday. We finished at just before 7 a.m. on Saturday. So it's a long night, 14 hours for everybody to be up. But I guess that's the one difference between the Mills race and the Mac race is obviously where we work in shifts on the Mac race. So you're up 4, down 4, and typically, and so you have your time rest. So it's a wonderful race to get ready for the Mac, but because of the shift system with the Mac, they are different races, obviously.
Because it is a shorter race from that perspective. From a time perspective, you ran 14 hours on this race. What would be a relatively fast time to give us some comparison to what it might have been, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, or 6 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, we're normally a 2, 3, 4 a.m. finish is typical for the Mills race. So when you're sailing the 70 miles, so there's, the Mills race has 3 different courses. So the Mills race, for the Mills Trophy, it's for 68 point some odd miles, and there's shorter races. But when you're sailing the 70-mile course, an early morning finish on Saturday morning is typical.
You see the sun coming up on Lake Erie, you know that it wasn't great wind.
Yeah, if you're not on the dock when the sun comes up, it was a slow race.
What's the best part of, and this is my last question, what's the best part of the Mills race to you?
I love the race, Greg. I've done 35 of them plus. I've been doing them since I was 17 years old. it was a family affair early on with my dad, my brother, my sister. Now it's just a wonderful time with the crew at night on Lake Erie. I just love the race. It's got 8 different legs essentially, so 8 different points of sail. It's a challenging race. Navigationally, it's challenging, obviously at night, but going around the Erie Islands, in between the Erie Islands, it's a challenging race. So I just love every aspect of it. I think it's the best race on Lake Erie, personally.
I asked the question because Tim Profit and some of the other race, some of the guys that are on this show are working on the 5 lake race up temp. They were going to race in Lake Ontario. And we wanted to have a conversation with some folks because obviously Lake Michigan is different from Superior, different from Erie, different from Huron, and certainly different from Ontario. And they really all have different personalities when the wind blows. And I think that's kind of an interesting part of the Great Lakes that from a subject perspective, that you really have different conditions. And I think that's kind of cool.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, I've done about 14 Bayview Mackinacs. I've done 1 Chicago Mackinac, and obviously a lot of races on Lake Erie. My familiarity is mostly with Lake Erie, but you're right. It's the lakes are different. The Bayview Mac is a wonderful race because you basically have every condition for the 48 hours you're out there. You got every condition possible, typically in each race. My experience with the Chicago Mac was back in 17-18, the year that it blew out of the north for 3 days. I was on a friend's boat. It is another 109, and it blew out of the north for 3 days. It was a horrible experience, but ended up buying a 109 shortly thereafter because of how well that boat performed under those conditions.
Well, congratulations. We appreciate you spending a couple of seconds with us, and hopefully maybe we can catch up to you for our live broadcast up in Port Huron in about 2-3 weeks. So be safe and appreciate your time.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We're talking with our favorite Viking, Tim Profit, here at Bayview, who just won the Mills ORC race. Yeah. And we're going to talk about the 5-lake challenge. But first of all, talk a little bit about the Mills and the fact that you won.
Well, so yeah, the Mills race is one of our 5 races that we're doing in each of the 5 Great Lakes this year. And, it's a favorite race of mine. I've done it on and off on my boat and other people's boats for, 20, 25, 30 times. So we entered it this year, and the Mills trophy is a PHRF trophy, and they conduct perf under the Perf Lake Erie rules, which differ somewhat from Midwest Perf, which we all use. And they also offer an ORC division. So the ORC boats are dual scored. They're also scored in perf. And the way they do it is a little unconventional, but it's really the only way they can do it. And that is if 25, 30 boats or whatever it was sign up for ORC and they are in different perf classes, they don't start together as a group. They start in their respective PHRF classes, but they're scored using their ORC ratings on their elapsed times. And so we were very happy to come in first overall in the ORC class. We also won our class in PHRF. So it was, either way, it was a pretty good race for us.
Last year, it's wind all over the place. This year, obviously, a little bit of dead wind. It's up for a little bit, so the times were a couple hours, a little bit later.
Yeah. I mean, that's typically for us, it's typically a 9 to 11 hour race, and it was 14 hours, 22 minutes for our elapsed time. And we did well because we were just able, I think, to stay in pressure more than a lot of the other boats. We favored, every parameter that we looked at prior to the race suggested staying just a slightly bit left on the way up to the first mark, and we have a lot of sprint boats. They sail higher angles. They all went up right, a little higher because those are the angles they sail in, and they ended up in less pressure. I mean, we beat boats that we should not have beaten to the first mark, and on the second leg, it was kind of a repeat thing. We stayed low, again, we didn't sag left, but we stayed to the left of most of the fleet, and the guys that went right, I understand that Smoke Show, for example, went 0 knots for like 40 minutes, and we went 0 knots for like 3 minutes. So, not that we were moving ridiculously fast for that 15-minute difference or 37-minute difference, but we had speed, and so that helps.
Still moving, right?
Yeah.
You start off the season with a 5 race schedule covering all 5 of the lakes, and obviously you headed to the outside of the Toronto area for the first race in Erie. You did a lot of work on the boat. We saw all the pictures during this, obviously through the winter, and you had some issues with the boat. Didn't get the first race in.
It was rather soul crushing. So let me kind of talk to the genesis of that. Sam Irwin, who's a guy around my age in the 60s, called the meeting of some of our crew last fall, and he brought this shirt, which we've since had dry cleaned. And you'll notice that it's from 1997. Sammy worked on stripes a lot. He also worked on the Sassy boats, and so he showed us this T-shirt, and he said, "What's missing here?" And of course, we said Lake Ontario. He goes, "That's right." Because I don't think anybody has done all 5 lakes on the same boat in 1 year. I think you guys should do it. And of course, we're idiots, and there were 6 or 7 of our Mackinac crew here, and we unanimously said, yeah, hell yeah, we're in. So what's cool about this is on the back of the shirt is everybody who sailed or ground support, okay? So at the end of the season, we're gonna have a similar T-shirt for everybody who participates either on the crew or as delivery crew or ground support.
All right.
So huge thanks to Sam Irwin for the idea. And by the way, Sammy was also on the delivery crew to Lake Ontario. So what happened there is, I did a lot of work on the boat. The boat is great. Everything's operating perfectly. The engine was completely rebuilt 2 years ago. The high pressure fuel pump was completely rebuilt in 2021, so what's that, 4 years ago? And so we did a delivery from Detroit to Port Colborne. Port Colborne is a town that at the entrance of the Welland Canal, and it's where people stage out of to go through the Welland Canal. And so we arrived there. We were scheduled to go out at 7 a.m. Thursday morning. We arrived in Port Colborne Wednesday afternoon, I guess, and fueled up, got some food, woke up, talked to the Canal Authority, or I guess the Seaway, the Welland Seaway Authority, and so they opened up the gate. We went through. We went into lock number 8, which is the first lock. They go in descending numbers, west to east, and we get to that lock, and now we're motoring to the next lock, and I experienced a condition called runaway diesel. I've never experienced that before. Luckily, I'd read about it, and runaway diesel happens when diesel fuel gets in spots in the motor where it's not supposed to go, and the thing starts revving up higher and higher, and you can't shut it off, okay, the normal way. So there's on a diesel boat, there's a fuel sack. You pull it out, it turns off the fuel supply at the high pressure pump, the motor stops running, and that's how you turn it off. And I just had this flashback to this article I read. It's like, kill the fuel, kill the air. And there's a fuel shut-off on my fuel tank, and I know exactly where it is, so I just left the wheel, blasted down there, shut it off, and there's huge plumes of white smoke, and then apparently it turned black. I didn't see that because I was down below trying to figure out what was going on. Right. So the engine shuts off. The VHF radio is going on with the canal people saying, stop, stop, stop. And it's like, well, we had no motor, we got no reverse, we're probably doing 4 knots, we're 17,000 pounds, we carry a lot of momentum. And we're in the canal, and they have these big, like freighter-sized bollards for dock lines every 100 feet or so. So once the boat slowed down a little bit, we jumped ashore, tied the boat off, and probably within a couple of minutes, there's a pickup truck and 3 people on there, and one of them wanted to talk to me about the eco-hazard we caused with fuel that came out. And of course, I'm down below looking at my engine compartment, trying to figure stuff out. I go, we didn't spill any oil, like that. And he goes like, come here. So I go look, and there's like, I don't know, 200 feet of rainbow,
right?
Fuel glaze on top of the
and we have
water.
good pictures of that.
Yeah,
with the buoy, the whole deal.
Yeah. So, anyways, they were they take their waterway very seriously, as they should, and so we were detained, I guess, if you will, until, not that we could go anywhere, because we didn't have an engine, but we were detained, and they actually called the cleanup crew, and there's guys in hazmat suits and big tanker trunks. They had a second tanker truck on standby in case we filled up the first one. What they do is they vacuum all the sheen off the water, and when all the sheen is gone, then they let us go. And letting us go meant they called not a towboat, but they called a freighter pilot boat, all right? That was 2,000 Canadian just to get towed out of there. All right, I haven't gotten, yeah. So anyway, it's not a cheap proposition. So we got back, and the captain of the Seaway, who was the decision maker as to can we, do we have to stay put? Can we go? And he informed me that we had to have a professional mechanic identify the root cause of the problem, correct the root cause of the problem, and then he had to inspect the boat before we'd be allowed back to the canal. We were on a timeline. This was Thursday morning. The race we were going to, which is the Susan Hood Trophy race, which was to be our first distance race in one of the 5 Great Lakes, started Friday evening. So once it became apparent it was physically impossible to get there in time, I stopped trying to negotiate with him as to how I could possibly get to the canal and make it, which made him happy because I think I was maybe being a bit of a pest. So talking to local mechanics, we couldn't find anybody to even look at it for like 3 weeks. They're all busy or whatever. So I called my good friend and trusted local mechanic Paul Lee, and Paul Lee happened to have a slightly used, rebuilt high-pressure fuel pump in his basement, and so Paul was kind enough to juggle his schedule around. He drove up Saturday morning, and we got it fixed, and from there we left and went to Lake Erie. I will say this though, we were stuck in Port Colborne for 3 nights. Delightful little town, never been there. The restaurants are pretty good, although in Canada apparently you cannot get a medium rare hamburger because the government forces all the restaurants to fully cook the meat, which I thought was rather impressive. But other than that, the food was damn good.
Last question. You got the 5 lakes. Are you looking for going back to Lake Ontario?
Yes, we have. So on the schedule we have the Bayview Mackinac race, which is July 12th. The Chicago Mackinac race in Lake Michigan, July 19. The Trans-Superior race, I think it's August 2nd is the start in Lake Superior. And we have found a race called the Whitby 100 in Lake Ontario, and that's out of the Whitby Yacht Club, which is somewhat a little bit east, I think, of Toronto. And so I'm still gathering information on that, and that's September 19th, 20th. So the good news is we don't have to haul ass straight back from Duluth and, go all the way to Toronto. It gives us time to get home, get a break, reorganize, cut the grass, all the adulting stuff that we have to do between sailing.
Good. Well, it sounds like it's an adventure, and appreciate your time.
No problem. My pleasure.
So much fun. 13 different one design fleets. We've all sailed handicap events this year, and it's so much fun to get back to just pure sailing one design. And Crescent is just, family one design, and so almost every crew is sailing as a family. I sailed with my son today. Best Father's Day ever.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, this great race in year 1, so there's expectation in year 2. It looks like from the smiling faces it did really well in year 2. It fits the calendar, certainly. But so the question is, what's new for 3? And is it all of a sudden the pressure on, or is there somebody for next year's coming up?
Well, we tried to run 3 circles this year. That was pretty aggressive. A lot of 13 different fleets on 3 circles, 3 district championships. It was a lot to bite off. So I don't know. We'll do a debrief after, and we'll see how make sure everybody's happy. Make sure we didn't bite off too much, but it all seemed to work. And the wind was the only loose torpedo in the thing, but everybody seemed to have fun. And it's the camaraderie, and it's just nice to have everybody together. We dream about this all winter, and it's so much fun to get all these one design fleets together. So it's great.
Yeah, we were. So this is the 2nd year of the Crescent One Design Regatta, and last year was just a home run. There was beautiful weather. Everything came together. The wind was there. And of course we were a little worried whether we could pull off another beautiful event, but we did. I mean, we had also luck with the weather, because yesterday was a little light, and when we came off the water, the sun came out and everybody was happy, had drinks and talked to each other. It was a very beautiful evening with good music, and it just turned out really good. And this morning we had the blessing of the fleet, which was beautiful and very good weather, and then we went out and had wind and could sail 2 races in our class. So we pulled it off again. And seeing what happens right now is also nice, feeding the competitors while they wait for their awards. Everything worked out as we hoped for.
When you have such a good first year before this comes off, and now you can sort of breathe a sigh of relief because it's come off great, but is there that extra pressure because you had such a good first year?
Yes, there was a lot of extra pressure because we had that good first year. We wanted to, again, pull off a good wind. It could have been with rain, but then the sailing has to be even better. But we were definitely under pressure with the
Does the point in the calendar also help you? You have the Helly Hansen a couple of weeks ago. This fits into a calendar for the racers that's almost kind of before the max take off and all the rest of it. It's a huge race, but it also falls in a perfect spot in the calendar.
Yeah, it falls in a very good spot as far as the calendar goes. Of course, it's Father's Day, but Crescent is a family club, and we welcome all the families. We had free children's dinners yesterday night too. It's the perfect family weekend for Father's Day, and I think that helps all together.
Before I talk about the race, I can only talk about the race committee.
Okay.
Because the weather forecasts here in Lake St. Clair were absolutely all over the place, and they did the best they could to get the most races in as possible. This has been an extremely odd weekend. It's from a weather perspective.
Right.
Today they put the Accelerando on, and we got everybody in the water just before the blessing of the fleet today. And the majority of the fleet was ready to go right after blessing of fleet. We got out onto the lake and got 2 races in before that air just shut off.
You had such a good first year. Obviously, everybody's walking around here with smiles on their face. I know there's pressure to make sure the second year is as good as the first year. What happens in year 3 after you've sort of built this thing? And then the second follow-up question is, it is such a perfect part of the calendar. You have the Helly Hansen kind of get off the season to start, which is a different race than this. This is really for the primary small boat race.
Right.
And you guys are kind of fit in before all of the sort of big stuff starts. It's a perfect place.
Yeah, I think that as Rob would say and the flag here would say, is this is kind of focused on youth and family, right? So the youth and family are sailing the small dinghies, and from non-suches all the way down to a fin or whatever. It's a family affair, and the nice thing is I think we've set a precedent here. This is a Father's Day event for us. So it's a true family thing, and the kids are enjoying it, and my kids are enjoying. They don't have to do anything for me today.
Talk a little bit about the Star, the love of the Star, and obviously this event today.
Well, I would say first is we're both second generation Star sailors. Our dads both sailed the Stars, so our love was passed on to us at a very early age.
And it's just this class of the class. The people who sail the Star are so nice, so helpful. We brought in a 14-year-old this week to sail in the event and ended up winning a green star. But it's the people that we come to, and Crescent has some of the nicest people, and they're wonderful hosts, and it's a beautiful lake to sail on. So it was a pleasure to be here this week.
Every fleet would tell you that they're passionate beyond every other fleet. I think you can make an argument that's more certainly true for Star, probably more than others. And my point is this: when does a hobby become an obsession?
Well, this hobby has been so strong in my life that I had to make a business to do it. So I built Star boats. I started as a sail maker. I was a boat broker, and now I do restoration work on all of them. So my life has been the Star class. His too, to a large degree.
Yeah, I've been sailing Star since I was 12, and I've sailed other boats along the way, but I've always sailed a Star, and always will.